So while millions of Nigerians were glued to their phones watching Very Dark Man and Portable trade insults and drop diss tracks, something massive happened that could affect every single Nigerian for decades to come. Just 3 days ago, while you were scrolling through social media watching the drama unfold, President Tinubu quietly secured approval of a staggering $21.5 billion loan. And then, as if that was not enough, he came back for another $347 million just hours later. But here's the shocking part. Barely anyone noticed the timing, almost too perfect to be a coincidence. Today, we are going to expose what really happened behind the scenes where Nigerians were distracted by celebrity B. Welcome back to RNN TV, your trusted source for the news that matters most. While other outlets chase clickbait and surface-level drama, we dig deeper to bring you the stories that actually impact your life. We don't just report news, we connect the dots that others miss. And today's story, it's one that every Nigerian needs to hear. Let's start with what everyone saw on social media. Very Dark Man and Portable have been going at each other's throat. The activist on social media sensation versus the controversial street up artist. Diss track flying back and forth, accusation of theft, leaked videos, and even talks of presidential petition. The internet was on fire. But while Nigerians were picking side and sharing memes, something far more significant was happening in the halls of power. On July 22nd, 2025, just 2 days ago, the Nigerian Senate quietly approved President Tinubu's request for a massive $21.5 billion loan. And if that was not enough, within hours, they approved another $347 million. Now, this is where things get really strange. The timing of this approval coincide with one of the biggest social media fields of the year, raises some serious questions. Let's put these numbers into perspective. $21.5 billion is not pocket change. To give you an idea of how massive this amount is, it is more than the entire annual budget of many African countries. For context, Ghana's total annual budget for 2024 was around $20 billion. We are talking about borrowing more than what the entire nation spent in a year. The additional $347 million bring the total to nearly $22 billion in new debt obligation. This money is reportedly earmarked for infrastructure projects, including the Lagos-Calabar Highway and telecommunication development.
Presidency, and the title of the communication is Request for Amendment of the Draft 2025-2026 Federal Government External Borrowing. And the content of the letter reads as follows. I have the honor to respectfully convey for Your Excellency's kind consideration the need to effect certain amendments to the 2025-2026 Federal Government Borrowing Plan, earlier forwarded to the National Assembly, to ensure the borrowing plan is consistent with the specific terms of financing arrangements made or proposed to be made by the federal government. Specifically, you may wish to know that in connection with 1, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, the total loan size for the Section 1 of Phase 1 of the project is $747 million, as opposed to the 700 million US dollars stated in the draft borrowing plan. This is because as of the time of transmission of the plan to the National Assembly, the lead arranger for financing only had financing commitments of up to $700 million from lenders. The shortfall in the financing was covered ultimately by export credit agencies. This therefore necessitated the request to amend value of the financing for the project to ensure it aligns with the loan size agreed in the finance document for the project. And 2, the Nigerian Universal Communication Access Project, a landmark telecommunication infrastructure project targeted at bridging the digital divide through the deployment of 7,000 telecommunication towers across undeserved and unserved communities in Nigeria, and pivotal to advancing the government's renewed hope agenda and accelerating sustainable economic growth and development. This critical project was inadvertently omitted in the computation of the borrowing plan, and its omission will cause significant harm to public interest. Total facility of the project is USD $300 million. 3, the summary of the breakdown is as follows. Nigeria Universal Communication Access Project, the financing institution will be China Exim Bank, and the amount will be $300 million US dollars. 2, Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway Project, additional financing. The financing institution will be Export Credit Agencies, and the amount is $47 million. So the total will be $347 million. 4, the proposed funding model offers significant advantages by leveraging on long-tenor, low-interest facility aligned with Nigeria's fiscal sustainability objectives. Furthermore, the projects were selected based on positive economic evaluation as well as the expected contribution to the socio-economic development of the country, including employment generation, skills acquisition, support for the emergence of more entrepreneurs, and poverty reduction. Lastly, inclusion of these projects in the National External Borrowing Plan will enable financial closure and timely implementation. In accordance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, we respectfully seek the approval of the National Assembly for the amendment of the 2025-2026 external borrowing plan to include the aforementioned projects and enable the Ministry of Finance to proceed with the financial arrangements and implementation timeline.
But here is what caught me off guard. The speed at which this was approved and how little public discussion surrounded it. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is it possible that VDM and Portable's beef served as a perfect distraction? Think about it. In the age of social media, public attention is everything. When people are focused on celebrity drama, they are not focused on policy decisions that will affect their future. This isn't a new concept. Political scientists have long studied what they call bread and circuses, the practice of distracting the public with entertainment while important discussions are made behind closed doors. Ancient Romans emperor used gladiator fights and free food to keep citizens happy and distracted from political corruption. In modern terms, we see this play out differently. Celebrity scandals, sports and controversies and social media feeds can serve the same purpose. They capture public attention and dominate news cycle while more serious issues slip by unnoticed. So to understand why this matters so much, we need to look at Nigeria's government economic situation. The country is already struggling with massive debt burdens. According to a recent data, Nigeria's total debt stock has been growing to an alarming rate. Adding another $22 billion to the burden raises serious questions about the country's long-term financial stability. What makes this even more concerning is the timing. Nigeria is currently facing some of its worst economic challenges in decades. Fuel prices have increased by nearly 500% in just 1 year following subsidy removal. Inflation surged to 34%. The naira has lost more than half of its value against major currency. In this context, taking on more debt, especially foreign debt, could have serious consequences. Every dollar borrowed today will need to be repaid with interest, and that burden falls on current and future generations of Nigerians. The speed of this approval is particularly noteworthy. Typically, loans requests of this magnitude would involve intensive public debate, parliamentary hearing, and detailed scrutiny of the terms and conditions. The fact that this sailed through so quickly while the public was distracted raises questions about transparency and due processes. The House of Representatives approved the additional $347 million just 11 hours after the Senate's initial approval. This level of coordination and speed is unusual for such significant financial decision. Here is the reality that many don't fully grasp. When the government takes on debt, it is essentially borrowing against the future earnings of its citizens. These loans will need to be repaid, and the money has to come from somewhere. Usually it comes from taxes, reduced public services, or economic policies that affect everyone. For the average Nigerians already struggling with high cost of living, increased fuel prices, and economic uncertainty, taking on more debt could mean even more challenging times ahead. The debt service cost alone would consume a significant portion of the national budget, leaving less money for healthcare, education, and other essential services. The VDM portable beef, while entertaining, doesn't directly impact your ability to put food on the table or pay your children's education. Government borrowing decisions, on the other hand, have long-term consequences for the Nigerian citizens. This isn't the first time Nigeria has taken on significant debt, and it's important to understand historical context. Previous borrowing sprees have mixed results. While some infrastructure projects funded by loans have genuinely improved the country, others have failed to deliver expected returns, leaving the country with debt but little to show for it. Now the big question is always accountability and transparency. Are these loans being used effectively? Are the projects the fund actually benefiting ordinary Nigerians? And are the terms of this loan favorable for the country? What makes the situation particularly interesting is how social media played a role. The VDM and portable field dominated Nigerian Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for days. Millions of people were engaged, sharing opinions, taking sides, and creating content according to the drama. The level of engagement is actually what makes social media such a powerful tool, but also what makes its potential destruction. When everyone is talking about one thing, they are not talking about everything else. And in a democracy, public attention is crucial for holding leaders accountable. So what can we learn from this situation? First is a reminder of the importance of staying informed about the issues that truly matter. Entertainment and drama have their place, but they shouldn't completely overshadow serious policy decisions. Second, it highlights the need for better media literacy. We need to be more conscious of what captures our attention and why. Are we focusing on the stories that matter most, or are we being distracted by the loudest voices in the room? Finally, it underscores the importance of holding our leaders accountable. Major financial decisions like taking on $22 billion in debt should be subject to public scrutiny and debate. The fact that this happened with relatively little public attention is concerning. That's the story they hoped you wouldn't notice while you were watching VDM and Portable show. But now that you know, what do you think? Was this just an unfortunate coincidence, or do you think the timing was deliberately planned? Drop your thoughts in the comment below. I read every single one. And if this opened your eyes to something you had not considered before, kindly subscribe to RNN TV. We are committed to bringing you the stories that matter, even when or especially when everyone else is looking the other way. What other stories do you think might be flying under the radar while we are all distracted by social media drama? Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you. We'll meet the next time.